Day 3 of the Senior Bowl is in the books, and I just wanted to give you all my collective thoughts on the risers and fallers through all 3 days of practice. We will be doing a watch along on Saturday of the Senior Bowl, so join us for that. Let's go ahead. Let's get into it. Let's talk about probably my top riser of the week, Quinion Mitchell. I don't think anyone did more for their stock than Quinion Mitchell. I think he was the best player here. He was phenomenal. He came in at 6 foot, 195 and 31 1/8 inch arms. Great. He's checking a lot of boxes. But the biggest box he checked was, what do you look like in press? And he looked good. He was sticky in press, went in off coverage. He came downhill with a head full of steam, and he got in the way of a lot of passes this week. He was shut down. He was shut down. Outside of like Roman Wilson on a few reps, Mitchell was just phenomenal. And I didn't think he was going to show up after the first day of practice, but hey, he did 2 days of practice and then decided to be like, yeah, you know what? I did what I came down here to accomplish. And he did. He is in that conversation about top corner in this class, because it's been a toss-up. Some people have Cooper DeJean, some people have Nate Wiggins, some people have Terrion Arnold. I feel like his teammate Kool-Aid's been put on the back burner for a lot of people. But Mitchell deserves to be in that discussion. He does. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Mitchell was quarterback 1 on a few people's boards. But I mentioned Roman Wilson was the one guy that got the best putting on Mitchell occasionally, and I think he was probably the best wide receiver down here, or at least one of. I think he did the most for his stock, in my opinion, because I had him as probably more of a 4th round guy. I thought, okay, he's a vertical slot, and then the measurements came in. He was smaller than I anticipated, coming in at 5'10", 186. I was like, okay, so he's definitely a slot guy. But golly, man, I thought he was just so slick in drills, and he was just consistently creating separation. And I've seen a few people kind of like give a little shout out to like, oh man, I'm getting Jaden Reed vibes. And I like that. I don't mind that. Jaden Reed had a very, very solid second half of the season for the Packers. And I kind of like that. For me, Roman Wilson is a top 75 guy now at this point. He stuck out enough. He did a lot of the right things. Another guy that decided, hey, I put in 2 really good days of practice, so I'll probably call it quits here. I came here and did what I wanted to do. So good for him. I want to stick with wide receiver, and I'm going to talk about Tulane's Jaquan Jackson. Coming in at 5'9", 190, and he was the small receiver here. There were a few of them, but I thought he was the one that probably looked the best. Day 1 wasn't great for him because it was my first introduction really to him. But like, you saw the quicks, you saw the speed, but there were times with the route running where he would just try to do too much and find himself just back into contact with the corner, or give the corner enough time to make up ground. But day 2, I felt like he was so much better. Like, especially during the team drills, he was just making play after play after play. He was the best small wide receiver here, which is a shame because I was really high on like a Jacob Cowan, who just came out here, was really small at 5'8", 165, and just didn't have like that Tank Dell type of week. Really, I felt like that was more so Jackson. Jackson probably did just incredible work for his stock. I think I get like was it Calvin Austin type of vibes. So like, I'm seeing Jackson as like early day 3, like 3rd or like 4th, 5th round. That's probably where I'm going to end up settling on him. It was, again, just very impressed with his week. I do want to touch up on a couple of other receivers real quick that I just want to give shout outs to, like Ricky Parasol, who also after 2 days of practice was like, yeah, you know what, did what I came to do. Did that? Yeah, no, he's gonna probably end up being a midday 2, maybe even a second round guy for me. Like he was more impressive than receivers that I had higher than him, like Xavier Leggan and Tez Walker. It was that impressive, and he just missed my wide receiver rankings. He was wide receiver 16 for me. But yeah, no, he's a guy that's gonna get a little bit of a bump from me, as well as I thought Javon Baker was relatively solid, but I don't think it's really going to change where I initially had him. I feel like you saw the quick twitch, you saw the ability, especially today, you saw his ability around the red zone where he just can go up and get it. But I don't know, I looked at him and I was like, yeah, you know what? He is who I thought he is. Jamari Thrash, another guy who was like, okay, I know this guy's got a lot of speed. He can create that separation with his speed, but he also showcased the ability to separate, not just with moves, but just using his body, his hands well. But at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, he was who I thought he was. Brendan Rice, another guy who was just big, physical wide receiver that can mollywop you at the catch point. And that's really what he was this week. A guy that'll struggle downfield, trying to create separation. And he did. Like Quinion Mitchell was able to make up ground and get an interception. Shoot, Virginia State's Willie Drew almost did that on day 2 as well. So like, yeah, no, Rice is exactly who I think he is. And for me, that's like back end of the 3rd, early 4th. So yeah, just wanted to kind of give a few shout outs. Even Ryan Flournoy, even though day 3 felt like his worst day, I think he came in being a lower competition player in terms of where he went, Southeastern Missouri, and just looked like he belonged. I think a lot of teams are now going to probably have a draftable grade for him, so good on him. But let's move to the tight end class. As for me, Ben Sinnott probably stuck out the most. He just looked like the complete package. He may have been dropping balls in warmups, but when it came to drills, man, that dude was catching everything. He looked fluid as a route runner. I liked him as an athlete. Not saying he's like this top tier athlete, but man, he can get open. Though I felt like he had to rely on his hands a little bit. But I mean, compared to the other tight ends here, I thought he was the best hands down. Really, Jaheim Bell comes close in terms of his receiving prowess, but at 6'2", 244, it's like, what do we do with you, Jaheim? What do we do? It's gonna be so tough, but good for Sinnott, man. Some of the, I feel like guys like AJ Barner, I was hoping to see better receiving chops, just because he wasn't utilized a ton in Michigan as a receiver, and now I can kind of see why. It's like, okay, yeah, you're firmly a blocking tight end and a special teamer, which is fine. He's a draftable guy. Don't get me wrong. Listen, I know you love the NFL draft as much as I do, and you're going to want a nice hefty watch list of players during this college football season. Well, go ahead, check out my draft guide. You can purchase it for only $30 by Venmoing or PayPaling me. Links in the description. It's a one-time payment and you get it for this whole draft cycle and forever and always. Technically, it's a Google spreadsheet. So send me your email when you send the payment. I'll get you hooked up. You will see my current prospect rankings and big board, my full evals. And guess what? It updates throughout the whole draft cycle. So it's a great purchase and it's a great way to support the channel. Let's move to the offensive line. I want to talk about Dominic Cooney. I was very impressed with him this week. If you're unfamiliar, this cat played left tackle for Kansas last year. He's a 6-year player originally from Central Mizzou and made the transfer to Kansas. Played left tackle, but you looked at him and was like, yeah, he's got a better build for a interior player, even though it's like he's got 33 and 3/4 of an inch arms, and it's like, yeah, maybe he could stick at a tackle, but I think he's probably a better guard. And honestly, he did a good job. Yeah, I thought he did a much better job on day 2 than he did day 1. He took center snaps and honestly looked really good there. So it's like, man, I feel like this guy could probably, like in a pinch, play all 5 positions. That's kind of huge. So he was someone that really shot up my board in a very good offensive line class in general. He's the only offensive lineman I decided to include here for risers. Like there were guys like what about Talanoa Fuaga? It's like we already knew he was good. He just came in and hit expectations. Like Jackson Powers Johnson, I've been loving that guy all year. Like he's been a first rounder for me for a while. So it's like for me, it was just like he hit my expectations for him. Loved it. I guess Bo Limmer looked good outside of that one rep versus Devontae Sweat. Isaiah Adams had a quiet week, but I felt like he was just never taking losses though. So good week for him. Yeah, like all in all, like even the toolsy guys like Tyler Guyton, Patrick Paul, I think they showed why people like them quite a bit. Yeah, they took their bumps and bruises, but the tools were just oozing. But let's jump to the defensive side of the football with Gabe Hall, by far probably my biggest riser in terms of this guy jumped from like a late day 3 priority free agent, probably closer to like early to mid day 3 for me. He had a really good week, coming in at 6'5", 290 pounds, insane length, 34.5-inch arms. You'll love to see it. He was so dominant day 1, a little bit more quieter these last 2 days of practice, but he was just so dominant. He showed those high flashes of like, because we've seen those flashes at Baylor, right? His ability just to be able to like finesse guys, but I felt like he showed them all on day 1 and then kind of came back down to earth with more of an evened performance. But I had to give him a shout out. Like I said, this guy was by far one of my biggest risers up my board. He was solid. However, Darius Robinson's probably the most talked about prospect on the defense outside of probably Quinyon Mitchell. It was a very, very good performance by him. Now, I'm not going to say it was like a perfect performance or anything. I think he was still out there actually on day 3, which was insane because he's just done the most work. I mean, everybody coming out of day 2, we're just talking about this guy as a potential back end of the first round type of pick. I think he's probably like he's top 50-ish for me, which it's still a significant jump. I only had him as a 3rd rounder. So yeah, it's still a good jump. And I mean, I think for a guy his size at 6'5", 286, I think it offs pretty good. He showcased some pass rush moves, which was real nice. And he's strong. He probably could have won quicker on interior reps, but you're going to be looking at this guy as a 5 tech, 6 tech, like a 3-4 end. I think that's kind of where like you probably want to get creative with it. But he did have some impressive wins. He had some quick wins, and it was just all over he was all over the defensive line. He came in with 34 and 3/4-inch arms, massive hands, 10.5-inch hands. He was literally the guy everybody was talking about on the way out. And then for me, Adisa Isaac was probably one of my biggest movers through the week, as he was just winning with speed. He showed so much more of an anchor and effort in run support. Like he was really good during the team drills. Like I'm probably pushing Isaac close to top 50, probably in the top 50. Like it was that good. Like Talanoa Fuaga was probably one of the guys that only guys that really could stop him today during team drills. They were doing more red zone drills today. He like on back-to-back reps, he just beat Kingsley Suamataia with speed. Like Kingsley just couldn't get there out there quick enough because freaking Isaac was flying. And like the build, 6'4", 250. He was a little bit bigger than I expected. Came in with 34-inch arms. I wasn't expecting that. Like Isaac in a class, in an edge class that's just was, for in my opinion, so desperate for needing guys to kind of step up after like some of the first round guys are gone, that day 2 feels like it gets real thin. I think Isaac really helped with some of those concerns. And even Darius Robertson, gotta give it also a shout out. Marshawn Nealon, like those guys are gonna fill out day 2 at the edge position. Maybe even a guy like Nelson Caesar had a solid week where he just really showcased the speed, but I do just get DPR vibes from him. Austin Booker, man, I think he is maybe a project, but golly, day 2, he was like right after everyone's throat in team drills. It was very impressive. Chris Braswell was all right. I don't know. Like he was dominant in some portions, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that pushes for like edge 4, where it's going to be like guys like Braylon Trice, Chop Robinson. You probably now got to throw like Darius Robinson, Adisa Isaac in there. It's like he's going to be in that mix, but I don't know. I feel like there's just going to be better options. Like Braswell, I don't want to say he was like a downer because he's not going to end up being a faller for me. I got 5 fallers, guys that really, I think, in my opinion, killed their stock for me. Talk about those guys at the end of the list. But like Braswell, I was just kind of hoping for more of a pop from. Real quick, what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, become bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. As always, let me know what you think in the comment section below, where we have that nice, beautiful football discourse. Move into the secondary. Cam Hart had a phenomenal week. We talked about Quinion at the top. Well, I think Cam Hart did a lot of good stuff for his draft stock. He was phenomenal. First off, coming in at 6'3", 204, 32 and a half inch arms. You love that. Big hands, 9 3/4. And he was just he literally lived rent-free in Tez Walker's mind all week. I felt like anytime I was watching Hart go up against Walker, it was immediately a Walker loss. He was so sticky in coverage. He was such a problem in press. And in the red zone drills, I thought he really shined as well. Thought he did a good job of just being a blanket. He had a pass deflection on one of the later reps today. It was nice diving pass deflection there. But Cam Hart, I think, yeah, you got to talk about this guy in the day 2 area, especially with some of the guys that may have hurt their stock, either by poor performances here or deciding not to be here. Guys like Josh Newton, Kalen Carson, really was hoping to see those guys here, but they didn't. They did not come, unfortunately. But my last riser here that I really want to showcase is Jarvis Brownlee Jr. I'm very excited to go back and watch some of his tape because, golly, he was good. Coming in at 5'10", 183, and day 2 really popped out for him, man. Even though day 1, I thought he did a good job contesting guys like Xavier Leggett. But it was really day 2 where he had this nasty interception. Was it? No, it was almost an interception. He dropped it against Jaquan Jackson, where he basically just ran Jackson's route for him. Just did a good job staying in his hip pocket and whatnot. He showed good recovery even when he lost early on reps. He had that against Marcus Rosmi, Jack Saint. And then today, man, he was really fun in the one-on-ones against Ladd McConkey. Yeah, he took the L on some of those, but golly, he was sticky. And not a lot of people were sticking with Ladd McConkey, in particular when he was in the slot. So, like, I thought Brownlee, this was a great first impression, in my opinion, for Brownlee. I came away really, really impressed. And it's going to be great. I watched a lot of his teammate, what was it, Quincy Riley. So now I get to look at the other side. And shoot, maybe I could even throw a little Storm Duck viewing in there as well, because Storm Duck had a really good Hula Bowl for no good reason. It's like, Storm Duck, you haven't been relevant in forever. But let me give a couple of shout outs real quick before we go to our fallers. As I thought Andrew Phillips did fairly well this week as well, as this was kind of my first impression of him. I haven't seen his tape yet. And I was like, yeah, no, this guy looks hella good, hella competitive. I liked what I saw. Carlton Johnson, though he's very undersized at 169, he didn't feel it. He really did. He was flying all around the field. I think he had one of the fastest GPS times as well. But man, you're gonna really hope he can put some weight on his body. I think Elijah Jones had his best day of the week. If you don't remember, he was a guy that really did well at the Hula Bowl. Ended up getting a Senior Bowl invite here and was kind of quiet the first couple of days. Like, not terribly bad, but nothing great. Today was a much better, like probably his best day of the week, if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about some of these fallers, starting with Devontae Walker. I think he probably did the worst harm to his draft stock, in my opinion, of any of these guys, because I was getting on the choo-choo train. I was like, yeah, I could get behind him as a top 50 prospect. Like, I really liked him at Kent State. I like what he did when he finally got on the field for North Carolina. And yeah, no, man, the drops, they were terrible. He did nothing but drop the football, and that persisted on day 3. Where he had multiple drops in the red zone. He had one that was a really good placed ball by Sam Hartman. He ended up dropping. He almost made the catch of the day, which was like a one-hander, but he dropped that. It just felt like nothing went his way this week. It's really depressing. And I mean, if I'm going to be honest, we're talking to this guy maybe back into the, or I don't want to say back into the third. Let's say third, fourth round area is probably where I see Devontae Walker. It's a really shame, man. Maybe it was a situation where the hype trade just got too out of hand. Sometimes it'll do that to you. Real quick, let's deviate to the offensive side of the football with Ladarius Henderson. It wasn't a great start for Ladarius Henderson, as in warmups he was knocked on his butt by Jordan Morgan, and it was just those pad drills where you're just hitting the pads, right? And Morgan pop, and there goes Henderson, and it felt like it was a prelude to what the week was going to look like, because he was on the ground so stinking much. And this sucks, because I really like I really do like Henderson. I had a midday 3 grade going into Mobile on him. Coming in at 6'4", 309. The length was great, close to 35-inch arms. You're like, oh man, maybe he could cut it a tackle. But he just kept playing high and just getting knocked on his butt. He was knocked on his butt by his teammate. What was it, McGregor, I think? He was knocked on his butt by Dwayne Carter. He was constantly on the ground. If you're going to play in the NFL, you can't be on the ground as much as Henderson was. So it was just tough to see, man. It really was. Next player I got is Johnny Wilson. Johnny Wilson initially was working out with the wide receivers, and then on day 2, he starts working one-on-ones against safeties, which is like, yes, make this transition to tight end, please. But it just wasn't an impressive week by him. It's coming in at 6'6", 237, 35.25-inch arms, ridiculous catch radius. But like, I don't know. I didn't feel like he was pulling away from anybody, even when they moved him on one-on-ones with the safeties. And I mean, he has to convert to tight end. In my opinion, he has to. Like, you already know you're a good run blocker, so it's just like, just make the transition and do it early. So I'm interested to see what he may look like at the combine. But like, this wasn't like a massive week for him, in my opinion. Moving back to the offensive line, Ethan Driscoll out of Marshall. This was my first impression of him, and it was not good. It was a instance of he wasn't that good these last 3 days. I don't think he's a draftable guy. I'm not going to go back and watch his tape. That's where I sit at with Ethan Driscoll. A guy that just wasn't good enough, probably UDFA in my opinion, which is a real shame because coming in at 6'8", 312, yeah, part of that is leverage, but I mean, 35 and an 1/8 inch arm length, that's really impressive. But again, didn't do a hot lot of anything with it, unfortunately. So like, yeah, no, I mean, I was like looking at fallers, and there were some guys where I was like, you know what? I think I'm right where I think they should go. That's probably right about that. But when it came to some of these guys who this was my first viewing experience of, he was by far the one guy that instantly I almost checked off my list. Like, I don't need to go back and watch this tape. I wasn't impressed here. I don't think it's really worth it to go back and watch a game or two of him. But my last guy I'm going to list here as a faller is Kalen Keene. Rough week for Kalen Keene. Golly, man. He was toasted by everybody on the national team. It was a rough go at it for Kalen Keene. Coming in at 5'11", 189, 30.5 inch arm. So he hits that check box. But he just wasn't good this week, unfortunately. He was unable. Like, I thought once he started playing a bit more press, he was going to be, sticky, but he just wasn't. Like, he was instantly finding himself down in the routes. And I was like, oh my gosh, is he going to end up, like, is he a slot guy? Because I just don't feel like he's a fluid enough athlete to play in press, maybe more of an off coverage, which is wild, man. I had him as a press corner. I did. But like 2023 wasn't a kind year to him. Wasn't like an awful year, but it wasn't great. He had a couple of bad matchups this year, and I really thought he was going to return to school. I don't know if it was just a Pittsburgh thing. I think Johnny Dixon didn't have a great week either. I didn't get a... Is it Johnny Dixon? Hold on. It is Johnny Dixon. I didn't get an update on if he was okay from the knee. Didn't notice him on the field today, though. I'm not going to lie to you. I was kind of out on him anyway, so it's not like I was really looking for him. But, no, okay, he did leave early. Okay, suffered a glute injury. It's not considered serious. So that's at the very least really good. Okay. I'm glad it wasn't a serious injury. Okay, it only required stretching and icing. Okay, that is really good news. But yeah, he wasn't someone that I was very impressed with. Not great. Like, if you were Idisa Isaac, I mean, like, wasn't a great look for Penn State this week at Mobile, unfortunately. It just wasn't. But let me know in the comment section below, who are some of your risers and fallers through Senior Bowl week. We will be streaming the game on Saturday, so join me for that. That's always going to be a ton of fun. And until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.